And then distracted them for 5 minutes. That's pretty constructive support from city council.
Awesome. Well, we will open the session and we will take a roll call.
You're up, Andrew.
So you're here, is that? Yeah, I was like, I'm not sure if we're gonna read.
Dave Evans here.
Katie McReynolds present.
Josh Stewart here. Derek Mills present.
Ellie Honecker.
Maureen Whalen here.
Helpful rep here.
Excellent. Well, we have everyone here and I would like to open it up to public comment.
I'm not gonna do Andy's timer.
Look at you.
So my name is Pam Shepard. I have a blog here. And first off, thank you so much for putting the circulator bus on your agenda for talking to council. It is awesome. I want to make sure you know, and I think I've said this once before, is that the Downtown Development Authority, or sorry, the South Metro Housing Option folks have heard from other people, specifically people who live in housing, public housing we provide, that they need a circulator bus too, and they're very passionate about it. So, you know, my vision is that we get a planning staff here at the city. I know we have people with that name. They don't do what I'm talking about. And so planning would coordinate the South Metro Housing Options folks with you guys and other boards and commissions which care about circulator buses. And then they would be integrated and you guys would get information, and so would all the other boards about an integrated concept of what those are. Instead, you're trying to make it up yourselves, and I still appreciate that you're carrying that weight. So I'm going to suggest, routes would be downtown to back and forth Littleton Boulevard. That would alleviate a lot of parking problems, because you could park in a place and go back and forth. That's a great business booster too. So it does that. And we should have that before the Littleton Boulevard sub-area planning happens. TMB's idea, just for those who may not know, is the powers would be for bicycles and pedestrians. And Littleton Boulevard would be for cars and buses. And by the way, buses aren't compatible with bikes, so don't do bikes on the bus route. It should be Littleton Boulevard. And that keeps the 50s historic preservation district for cars really clear on Littleton Boulevard, but serves our modern bikes and peds also, and expands the business area. Anyways, thank you so much for that. I did want to mention from March, I brought up that the transportation master plan that you're going to talk about it's not coordinated with the comprehensive plan, and council and staff did not update the comprehensive plan. You cannot do an adequate job, or the job you want, I believe, and need to do on TMP without a comp plan update. Neither can the other boards and commissions. Again, this is an integration function that a city design function would do. And it offends me greatly after all this time that we don't have that function yet. I did want to make a quick comment. Back from March, the Arapago Transit Connections Plan, it includes sidewalks and multimodal, but I wanted to mention it didn't include first and last mile access. That's what a circulator bus would do, get us down to the RTD station. It didn't include the quarter-mile walk shed that we've talked about before, et cetera, et cetera. So just some stuff. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna prepare to jump into the discussion topic. The focus of the meeting is to go through three major topics that we're preparing, discussing, and giving some opinions on direction for the city council study session that will be happening in September. And it's on which day currently?
September 8th.
Yeah. So, and 3 weeks.
Labor Day.
Yeah, and 3 weeks before that, we will be submitting a written packet to council to illustrate what we're presenting the topics, so they have something to follow along with and everything. We will open that with the multi-use path and the sidewalk study group so that we can start that discussion and where that basically through this bill, a very rough draft, and we're gonna make sure to get that posted up so that the public can know what was discussed and kind of what comes to general rough consensus and make sure that we're always being as transparent as we can.
Okay, move to September 8th, so we have our next meeting also to focus on
We do,
this.
yeah.
Okay, so that's a huge relief
Yes.
on our part.
Yeah, and it's not pushed to December or anything like that, so.
Excellent. And looks like we're gonna cover all three topics tonight, Derek. So
Absolutely.
that's the intent.
Yeah, are there any other questions? I mean, logistic wise, before we kind of dive into the content, so September 8th, so then, I think it's August 18th that we'll need to get our.
That's when it'll be due to the clerk,
That's
so
due to
we'll
the
probably need materials the week before.
Okay,
About the 10th, 11th will be.
So August, what's our deadline?
then August 14th, that's a Friday.
Yep.
And then, that's good.
Yeah, I will be out of town, so.
Yeah,
Does
sounds
that work
really
for
up to
you?
me, yeah. Sounds great, yeah. Yeah, if you can get it to us by August 14th, and then that'll give us, kind of give me Monday and Tuesday to kind of look over it and stuff like that. So, yeah.
And just know what our goal is gonna be is, each of the topics will have about 15 minutes ultimately to kind of present everything to council. And we did wanna put a little bit of space in case they have questions or discussions so that we can respect their schedule. So ultimately, we probably should aim for 10 to 12 minutes for each topic.
So we got like 30 to 45 minutes with them in the study
So
session.
yeah, I was just gonna pull up the draft council calendar here, cause is it just transportation or are there other topics that night?
No, currently there's 4 things on that, so it currently says 45 minutes, however. I think maybe we should plan for 30, just because the math is not mathing for what is currently on the calendar.
Then we'll,
And stuff might move.
Where are we in the lineup, like what order?
This is showing TMB as first.
We have a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have TMB joint session, a safer streets update, tentatively an economic development strategies discussion, and an election campaign rules discussion.
Those are always fun.
Based on, so I was at the CML conference with you, and at least one of my colleagues is kind of interested in how we can use technology and AI to kind of monitor the use of our roads and trails. And so I wouldn't be surprised if a council member asks you guys about your interest in kind of moving or pushing an agenda for kind of buying cameras or renting cameras and using AI to kind of get more information about bicycles and electric bicycles and electric motorcycles on our trails and roads. And that's just a heads up. I'm just telling you that to think about it.
Arapago uses a technology where it's our phones, whether you know it or not. We're being tracked via our phones and they can tell if you're walking, biking, or driving. So Arapago, all of their information at that last meeting was, we can track where you are, who you are, what age you are, and walking, biking, or driving.
I think this is more about like using the photos to figure out the bicycle versus electric scooter kind of conversation.
So it's like the type.
Yeah, that, I think that you might be able to collect more information, but we got an email, just because it's creepy, we got an email about attendees at the block party, and it talked about where they came from, how long they stayed at the block party, and then where they went afterward. All based on, so it was a conversation around, kind of did the block party bleed into people eating at restaurants elsewhere in the city?
Yeah, and that's I believe that data comes from Placer AI, which is a software that the city licensed, and that also uses phone data. to know where people are coming from and going to.
I know Bicycle Colorado has contracted with the company to set up cameras to measure intersections just for everything that you're talking about. Like, what is the actual bike traffic, pedestrian traffic,
Yes.
car traffic? And so.
Anyways, just, I think we might be asked about that by council members. Where you think, what you think about that?
Sounds like a just work.
No, I mean, I wasn't. I am not the council member who is pushing for that. Yes. That's not me.
So ultimately, I want to have 2 to 3 topics, like major bullet for each one that we're going to present. And we want to narrow it down to those 2 or 3 items per topic, just so that we can be efficient, very efficient focused, starting the presentation to council.
Where do we begin?
We are going to start with first topic is the multi-use path sidewalks and everything else. So I'll let us start off with that.
Shane, are you guys able to send that packet to everyone?
Yeah, there's.
I'll just start off the conversation with, I know that a big discussion of sidewalks and everything has been related to both the old standard and what's considered today almost an inadequacy. There's also a lot of focus on trails and kind of like multi-use, but what is everybody's opinion on that? And for the people who spend a lot of time on that, how do you guys, what do you want to see focused on first?
Can I present what we discovered on multi-use paths to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll start there. So a multi-use path or a shared use path, which I did confirm is the same exact thing, is essentially what we would think of as like the Highline Canal Trail or the Lee Carter Greenway or the Lee Gulch Trail or the Mary Carter Greenway. It's a 10 to 12 foot wide space that is for non-motorized use. And so specifically a multi-use path is right along a street side. So in Littleton, we could kind of think of it as like a street side trail, essentially. So
Does it specify paved versus unpaved?
so it could be a lot, yeah, it could be a lot of different things, and a lot of cities have done it in many different ways. But the key distinction is that it is not a cycle track, which a cycle track is 2 ways of bicycle traffic. It's really designed for bicycle, walkers, strollers, people in wheelchairs, just whatever is necessary for that space in a protected lane, separate from traffic. So it's not out in the middle of the street, it's not down the middle, it's on one side or the other.
And by non-motorized, you're not necessarily excluding electric scooters and bikes, but rather.
No, just like, yeah, non-gas.
Yeah,
Cars and trucks and all that.
exactly. What's classified as non-motorized, like your class 1 and 2s, just like our trail systems are. So, but it's open to anybody in both directions. So you don't have one on both sides of the street. They can be at street level. They can be elevated sidewalks. They could be crusher fines along the side of the road. They could be the same asphalt that's in the road. So there's a lot of different aspects to a multi-use trail. It could be just pretty much anything. The idea is that it's following the same path as an existing city street. So, yeah. I can't read that up there, so I have to keep mine.
I know.
But what we kind of want to discuss about multi-use paths is their ability to be rolled out in a temporary fashion that's low cost and easy to implement before having to commit to a permanent solution. So putting in something along like a Windermere that gives that protection, or maybe like over here on Church, we have those barriers up. It's something that can be done quickly and easily from a design aspect, from a build out aspect, and it doesn't necessarily need to be like the 12-foot wide sidewalk that we have at Euclid. So that's the expensive kind of end goal. The other part of making a recommendation to go to multi-use paths temporary before permanent is we can collect data on, is this actually the right thing for this street without having to commit to, $10 million per mile, like a full build out would be. And so we've talked over the last year about the dozens of different ways we can do temp barriers and the dozens of different ways we can make it look. But the idea is that we would want to recommend to council to look at our neighborhood connectors and plan for rolling out a multi-use trail along these. The big point is we want to connect our trail system to our neighborhoods, and our neighborhoods to things our trails don't connect you to. So commerce, grocery stores, other neighborhoods, all the things that you really can't get to without getting onto a neighborhood connector. I think for Littleton, multi-use trails really can be seen as an extension of our current trail system. So they're connecting Lee over on Prince up to, or down to the High Line at the bottom of Prince or Windermere. And so like really bringing these neighborhoods, giving them a place so they could get onto the trail system without having to navigate a Windermere or find back ways to be able to get to the trails that they prefer to be on as well. We'd like to see these on any street that has a speed limit over 20 miles per hour after we figured out the 20 is plenty thing. But if neighborhoods, like the small neighborhood streets are going to 20 and the Gallops and Princes and Windermeres are going to 25, those would be the ones we'd like to see them on. More specifically, our neighborhood connectors, which also includes Powers and Jameson and Cayley and a few others kind of interspersed throughout there. But the ones that we see in main Littleton there is going to be Ridge, Prince, Windermere, Gallup, and Elati.
Do we have any streets with a speed limit lower than 20?
No. I don't even think we have any streets with a speed limit of 20.
We've got a couple. There's not.
Do we?
Yeah.
They're like 13 and a half somewhere.
I'm not aware of it. But that doesn't mean it's not.
Maybe in a parking lot or an HOA. And so let's see. Yeah, we want these to finish out. We also found out that these street level trails or these multi-use paths can be built with permeable surfaces, which I know the $2 billion questions in Littleton is how do we fix our sidewalks and how do we fix our drainage? And so we kind of have an opportunity not to solve it 100%, but an opportunity to help with both of those situations. So the multi-use trails could go in, they could use permeable surfaces like crushed fines. I don't know, I'm throwing them out like through Aberdeen Village. You could do pavers on top of permeable substrate. So our drainage it helps with drainage, and that's going to help to build raised crosswalks, and it's going to help to do a lot of the other things if something permeable were already in place and we didn't have to cycle everything through underground tunnels. So that was something that we found, and other cities are doing this, and there's lots of products out there, and I'm sure Shane and Ken already know about.
We know about some of them.
Some of them, yeah. I found that there was actually like permeable asphalt, which was interesting.
Yeah.
So those could also, if the trails were a permeable surface, it helps with snow removal because when that snow does get piled up, it drains faster. So there's just different elements that we can really get benefits from by going to a multi-use path rather than trying to do bike lanes in the middle and spend $800 million on sidewalks. So every place that we're talking about is in a neighborhood. So obviously these would have to be nice looking. They would have to accommodate driveways, and they'd have to take into account how that interaction between driveways and paths work. That's something that people smarter than us can take on. The lane also can be plowed by standard snowplows. So you don't have to go buy a special ATV or something to plow this because it is essentially just another lane of the road, the same width of the other lanes. And the recommendation that I would say to make is that when planning for a multi-use path, you make it the exact width of whatever you're going to give the cars. So if you're going to give the cars 10 feet, make the multi-use path 10 feet. If you're going to give them 12 feet, make it 12 feet. But use that math so everyone's equitable in the way we're trying to approach keeping traffic on this street. So you go down the priority streets there. This is straight from the current TMP. You can see where the neighborhood connectors are. They're all the streets in yellow. So if you can see yellow, which I have a hard time with. And then if this does work, there's opportunity to see if this would work out on bigger streets like Mineral. So some of our arterials that are on there that are connecting South Park to Costco or some of those other neighborhoods down there. Go to the next one, Shane. Any questions so far? I think you've all heard about these things before, so. So these are just some of the characteristics of what a path would look like. Again, equivalent to the travel lane, minimum of 10 feet is what the Federal Highway Administration recommends. 8 feet is the bare minimum. They prefer to see 10. It could be hard materials, porous materials, anything in between. It can have parking next to it. So if the street is wide enough, you don't necessarily have to give up parking. This depends on how wide the current street is. When there's parking involved, it'd have to be a curb type situation to separate the two so people can still open doors and things like that. So you wouldn't see bollards in that. But a good example is if you've ever been to South Broadway where they've put in a cycle track. They've put parking street side, then a cycle track, and then the sidewalk. And what they've put there is a 1 foot wide, 6 inch tall curb that cars park up against. So it protects the bicyclist because you're not going to go over that, unless you've really messed up. You're still able to use your car.
That's not a mixed use.
What's that?
That's not a mixed use.
The one on Broadway is a cycle track. Yeah, but it's kind of the same concept. If we were to put parking, and I think the next page, I kind of have some pictures that we threw together on Street Mix. So I went out and measured a lot. It is 46 inches from gutter to gutter, or 46 feet from gutter to gutter. And the way we're utilizing it is that top picture right there. So essentially we're giving about 7 feet of parking, a 5 foot wide bike lane, and then 2 lanes of travel. And with that 46 feet wide, you still could, in that second picture, you can see we fit in a multi-use path there on the far left, a protected curb of some sort, gave 9 feet of parking, and still were able to fit 9 feet of travel lane in each direction. I like that Street Mix allows you to put semi trucks on there. So you can see like the largest vehicle possible, because what about the trash trucks?
Parking on one side.
What's that?
Parking.
Both sides.
Yeah.
You can't read that tiny little.
Well,
Thank you for zooming in, Shane.
Are fire trucks the same width as garbage trucks?
Yeah, so the roadways allow 103 inch wide is the biggest a vehicle can be. And that's typically
Right.
semis, garbage trucks, and fire trucks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just a thing to keep in mind, Maureen, the width isn't really the constraint with fire trucks. It is how they need to turn in and turn out of areas, and that's where your biggest conflict usually is.
Okay.
Like at super tight roundabouts.
Yeah. Same with the bus drivers, right? That's where.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the trash trucks just run right over there.
Right. Straight on through.
And then if you go to the next one, Shane, this is kind of what's currently proposed by the city. I mean, that's not exact, obviously. The way I put it in with an 11-foot parking lane, it's more like a 10 foot with a buffer for opening your car door. But I wanted to highlight that this is what the current Elati redevelopment is suggesting. And there is space to do parking on both sides. It would just be as tight as a normal city street, like any of our neighborhood streets, which naturally slows traffic and has benefits as well. And personally, I would like to see less paint on these streets where we put these multi-use paths, because I think they kind of help to understand how much you have as a car naturally, because you've shrunk the entire lane. You can tell there's obviously a space you're not allowed. And that should slow traffic without having to put up double yellows and constant speed reminders and other things, the road diet concept essentially. On the next page, we talk about the permeable surface options, and that's about what we came to. Katie, do you have anything to add?
This was my job to look at the permeable surfaces, and I found there were just so many cool options out there that I just don't see in US cities, or at least like in Colorado as often. But one of the coolest ones was the plastic grid pavers. They're like $3 a square foot, and you just fill it with pressure fines. There's a very minimal maintenance, and they have a 20-year warranty on it. So if you're trying to do something temporarily and measure it, that was a cool option, and they're local. But the porous asphalt, there's so many local companies that do this too, where it doesn't require any additional drainage, and they have very minimal maintenance on them. Also, they had a warranty as well. And then any kind of pervious concrete usually has like a mix of, I believe it's rubber that they mix in with there. And that was all very interesting, long lasting, and they use recycled materials. And then the permeable interlocking concrete pavers are probably the most expensive ones. And there's the least amount of maintenance required for those. But the water would flow in between the pavers and allow for drainage, which is huge for our snowfall.
So with the plastic grid squares, would that help reduce the washout of the pressure fines?
Correct. Yeah, it prevents any excessive erosion. And snowplows can go on top of them. So they're usually used on highways for emergency vehicle access. Just on the side of the highways that don't require any additional drainage. Yeah.
And I can tell you like some engineering information in some other communities, where a lot of the most success of these is like, one of the challenges is making sure they're installed correctly. And there's actually a limited number of contractors that have the knowledge of how to install it. So that can possibly raise some of the cost of it without really being obvious. The other thing is these do have very strict maintenance, and certain equipment has to be present in the city. So there could possibly be that as an additional cost, so that these are properly maintained now locations. They've had a lot of success on low traffic roads. So like your rural roads, your sidewalks, kind of like your decorative downtowns, you see a lot of them in. And that's where like a lot of high traffic where it's really hard to get to, or if they've been unmaintained, they've become a very expensive maintenance issue.
I just like that because they clip into each other, they can be used on one street, and then when we're ready to do something permanent, they can be pulled up and moved to another street. I thought that was pretty interesting.
And they're making new stuff by the day.
Oh, yeah.
This is a bit of a broader question, because it will come up actually when we talk about the transit. Like, how far are we going on the recommendation, right? Like, there was one point you said something like experts can hash out those details. Totally agree. But like, even to this point, right? Like, of the product use, right? Like, I don't know that we're gonna hear, like, I guess what will we succinctly say, and what would success look like?
Yes. Okay. I think that's what we all need to decide in here. Personally, I think it should be a very general recommendation, like, we think we should have these.
The concept will save us money.
Yeah, and
Right.
That's where I think the emphasis on this being like a porous or semi-porous material is the most like specific product, less so, but make sure that, hey, we're helping both our like sidewalk and storm drainage, like we're trying to accomplish both to some degree.
Well, and I think outlining the benefits more than anything as to like why we should do this. And obviously, I don't think for council, we should get into, here's the product you should use, but if you design it right, here's the benefit we can get. And then the important thing, I think, for our recommendation should be to test out the temporary installation of these. Not do a full design and plan. I mean, very much like what the city is asking for a Lottie, saying, let's ask for that on other streets. If we're gonna go through and do a repave, let's street level, not have to do a big, giant, expensive project, but let's make this the focus of Littleton to make our trail system more unique and more connected.
And we don't have to use all of these, or one product universally in the city. That would be the other thing to, I think, make part of it. Concept of permeability, but then.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be one thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, I think that one of the biggest benefits to multi-use paths is, it brings us back up to ADA standards, on those corridors, which I was just driving to Andy's Frozen Custard the other day and I saw 2 people on wheelchairs, just in the street, so I just.
Yeah, Rich has 300 yards of sidewalk and they're not connected. So.
There is a document called an ADA transit plan with the city that has a lot of really good information about how the city wants to tackle ADA compliance in the future. And while it's not a part of the TMP right now, there is potential that it could be, but that'll be on the discussions that we have once the whole TMP process moves to the next stages.
Yeah, and with the retrofit on a lottie, this is a question we kind of asked legal about in some other jurisdictions, is if we just designate a part of the road and say, we can't call it a shared use path because it doesn't have ramps, it doesn't have detectable warning surfaces. So even though the width would be better than our current 2.5 foot sidewalks, there's other factors that make it non-compliant. So it would be a non-vehicular space. And then, so other cities have, tried to do that. And, ADA is good, but it's also, there's some tricky things you got to kind of figure out. So.
Yeah, and once ProAg comes about, there is going to be additional challenges, but also actually some very critical allowances.
We get feedback from you guys as kind of experts in this field. What are your thoughts on this?
Sure. Yeah. You want me to start? Yeah. So we did, because thanks for sending this, by the way, too. So I know almost nothing about stormwater. So I connected with like our stormwater or water resource manager and then some guys up from the service center about kind of different things. It sounds like, because the last time I learned about porous pavement and pervious pavement, it was like, yeah, it's great if you're in San Diego, right? Or Las Vegas. Sounds like the technology has come a long way, like they've come up with new products. From my understanding or from talking with folks is it takes a lot of maintenance because it is porous. If you don't clean it out regularly, then sediment gets in there and it can essentially become, impervious after a while. And so that was, one of the concerns they had is just that, we're already short on maintenance guys. So not that it's not a possibility, right? But if that's something the city moves toward, prioritizing maintenance would be a big part of it. Talked to some of the plow guys about, hey, plowing trails and stuff like that. Their concern was with pervious pavement is sometimes it doesn't hold up to the same vehicle weights. And so if you've got a big giant plow that requires a CDL, then that can, and you're using that to plow a trail, that can be an issue. All these things are solvable, but just things that they brought up. So yeah. And I think the other thing, like with the pervious stuff and like storm sewer, because like one of the, talking about like, hey, we obviously have storm sewer implications anytime we change streets, is that because Colorado tends to have like very big events instead of like a steady flow of rain, that a lot of times we want to make sure there's redundancy in the system, right? So it's not getting rid of storm sewer, but it's also maybe it's not upgrading the storm sewer, but it's including like rain gardens, bioswales, as well as the pervious pavement, along with the maintenance to keep up on it. So so that was just some of the things I heard. Nothing insurmountable, but a lot of like other things to think about that come along, with that. So
Yeah, and I think there's just probably a lot more research and just knowledge that we would have to learn and that the city would have to learn as well. Like anecdotally, our storm water or storm and sewer system is failing.
Not anecdotally.
In reality, new over collapse happened this week too. So I think that's the other thing with all of this, right, that we talk about is like, what is the capacity of the city to implement these types of things? So like our water resources group has been historically understaffed. The city is still trying to figure that out. We are historically underfunded in that as well. And so I think like the appetite to probably bring like a new stormwater system through pervious pavement is probably just not in line with city staffing and funding mechanisms right now. Again, that's not something that we can't solve, but right now, I know like that program is really just trying to focus on all of our culverts collapsing. So, yeah, again,
Real thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
as Shane said, not insurmountable, not things that we,
Going
didn't
to,
solve, but.
outside of porous pavements, just the multi-use path, the recommendation to go temp before permanent, like, how do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, and I was thinking about cost today too. So the cost I got from our assistant city engineer was that it's about $110,000 to $150,000 a mile of neighborhood street to repave. And then with so like Alati's a good example, right? That repaving would take place, it'd be a couple $100,000 on Alati. And then coming in with, some sort of concrete thing after that would be another few $100,000. So it's not, you start doing that on every street, right? And it starts to add up. So it's not inexpensive, but it's also a lot more affordable than the full reconstruction of Alati, which based on Euclid, we estimate to be $18 to $20 million for a 2.5 mile neighborhood street. And we would love to do that on every single street, but obviously you get into like competing resources for competing safety issues and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Alati's a good example is, it's kind of a proof of concept that if, the public and city council kind of agree and that's how we move forward, that we would like to do this on other roadways as well. I think, just looking through like the different neighborhood connectors, I think like the next step is the prioritization of what corridors and whatnot, in certain corridors that already have existing ADA compliant sidewalks, like those probably wouldn't end up in the running, right? Because they, like Jameson, for example, that already does have sidewalks and has bike lanes, so we probably wouldn't be looking at a corridor like that, but Jameson is the exception, not the rule in the city. So there's many other corridors that have this opportunity. I will say in our Littleton linkages trail study, I don't know if folks have looked at that. There were some kind of trails on streets to connect within parks. It didn't talk about the retrofit option, right? Or like the more kind of temporary option, but it talked about what are those critical links to get people to and from parks or different cultural centers. So I do think it's something that we've kind of been thinking about for a while.
How confirmed are we on what we're doing on Alati?
So the shared use path option is the recommended path forward. At the May 30th open house, the question we ask is, okay, how do we implement? What's the path forward on implementation? And the three options we presented are, I like this vision, but like my immediate concern as a resident or a person participating in this survey is spot treatments at certain intersections and traffic calming. And that's what I think you should prioritize money on. The vision is great if we can get there eventually. Okay. The second option was retrofit, right? And we had some, if you went to the open house, we had some different options out there, like the concrete, the safety lane divider, right? And then also like the ones you mentioned, Josh, like they have on Broadway, except for ours weren't like, cemented into the ground, but they weren't poured into the ground. They were precast and then brought and set down. And then there's the different, plastic and rubber options.
So I guess my thought, like, we don't necessarily know that it's going to be this type of shared use path. Like, I guess we can't say this would be the pilot.
Right, I mean, it could be, and then the other option is save up the, $18 to $20 million and do the whole thing. And so the other thing that we're trying to balance as staff is the political capital of it, right? Is so, if we go in and we'll see what the survey result, I just closed yesterday, and go in and everybody says, hey, I really don't like the retrofit. I understand what you're trying to get, but I don't like the retrofit. And we go anyway, then that makes it harder for us to kind of do other incremental changes around the city. And so that's not something that we always like, right? It's like we have an option that we think is the safest and it delivers on the vision.
And it's affordable.
And it's affordable, relatively speaking, right? And, also if we get a ton of, if the political winds shift because we're pushing too hard, then it means that all of the good progress throughout the city could be squashed too. So that's more Robert's field.
Yeah, so basically we're going to council, we're going to ask council to.
Yes, yeah, we're gonna ask council to weigh in on how we move forward. So, and we'll have results from the survey, so.
Great, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Will the results also include this like sticky voting stuff or not?
Yeah, so that'll be separate. So because we, the online one, we're asking people to identify where do you live and then like identify an option. So that way we can see how it varies based on where people live. We didn't really ask that at the open house, right? We just asked them to identify what's your favorite. So they will both be kind of included in our summary and then the stuff that we share, but they will be combined together. So.
I think one of the things with the Lottie and just lessons learned for us moving forward with other public engagement is just like, I know at the open house, there were a lot of folks from Aberdeen Village that really did not want us to do anything. The retrofit option we're presenting is not in Aberdeen Village. So we had, there's an education piece of like, we're not touching Aberdeen Village in this retrofit, right? It's just south of Cayley. And so I realize you're really angry, but we're not touching Aberdeen Village. We're not touching it. So, yeah, we'll just have to see what the results say.
Yeah. And then I think another thing we're dealing with on a lot is, like you measured, I'm guessing somewhere between like Euclid and Ridge is where is that where you measured? Yeah, which is our widest section of a Lottie. Yeah. And there's other places it goes down to 34, right? So how do we kind of make that, you can't like, if you have all the money in the world, you can, punch the cross section all the way down the corridor, but since we don't, how do we kind of retrofit and kind of, squeeze things? And that's why in some areas on the kind of the recommendation is that there's some areas where like, yeah, we can preserve street parking, at least on one side of the street. And then there's somewhere where like, we really can't. So, and we tried to limit that, so that it's only impacting places where, there's good driveway access and very low utilization of parking today. But that's the reality is that about a third of the parking up and down the corridor would be eliminated. So with the current recommendation.
However, only 50% was utilized.
Yeah, so yeah,
at peak hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Parking utilization never got above 50%. So there'd be enough parking. And like, if you live in Cap Hill downtown, like parking across the street and walking is not a big deal, right? But if you live on a Lottie in Littleton, you might be like, I've always parked in front of my house. I would like to continue to, so.
When the-
Introduced to the people that live near Littleton Brewery.
With that.
Littleton Brewery has had a lot of sparked a lot of those conversations.
Yes.
When the like surveyors publish that data, could you share that with us so that we can like take a peek at what people are saying?
Yeah, and what we typically do is have like a summary of everything, and then we have like the raw data available. We usually have a few folks throughout the project who've requested that raw data through a core request. So, whoever deals with a core request, make sure we don't accidentally like put somebody's, email and phone number and address out for everybody else to do what they want to with. So, yeah, happy to share it. So.
And just some information generally. So the FHA about 2015 published a guidance document for ADA improvements. When you do certain things to a right of way, you actually have to go and update all the curb ramps and everything else. So as the city is doing things like the mill and fill, which is basically where they scrape up the road and repave it, they actually are required by law to do upgrades and make sure every curb ramp is to current day standards. So unfortunately, some projects can get a lot more expensive or a lot less expensive. And this also will affect some of the recommendations is like we get into the details later on that the city is able to do because there may be will to get some things fixed, but there also needs to be a way to pay for it. And
I transition into funding for this particular thing. Did you talk about funding avenues for multi-use paths?
We didn't really meet.
I sat down with Derek last week and he brought me up to speed with everything I missed.
I've been firing Derek emails, but that's.
Okay.
we're gonna wrap it ended with funding because we want to talk about transit because our funding is going to go touch on both topics and kind of cover both.
Well, of course, but I think in this conversation, we're talking about multi-use paths. So if there are avenues to fund multi-use paths, let's make that relevant conversation now. Like, how did Centennial get $9 million for Colorado Boulevard? Like that's all from grants and funding from the federal government. So I would like to know how that happened. But that was a 1 mile stretch, if you guys don't know, from Arapahoe to, was that Dry Creek?
Dry Creek.
Yeah, on Colorado Boulevard, taking it down from 5 motorized lanes to 3 and giving 2 12-foot wide sidewalks on either side. It's 3 lanes to the north of Arapahoe and 3 lanes to the south of Dry Creek. And so it was just this weird anomaly in the middle and actually a lot less safe for people trying to turn left. It was But $9 million, they only had to pay $900,000 for the entire project. So, and their meet and greet about it was surprisingly positive. So I don't know what they do on that side with their marketing campaigns, but it was a very full room with a lot of very positive comments, even from the ones that are usually very negative. So that was interesting.
It's not a street that would ever have side parking on it. It was never.
It didn't have parking, yeah, but they were asking to get rid of 2 motorized lanes, and there's usually a lot of pushback on that. Yeah. And you heard the normal things like, is it gonna fit trash trucks? Where are the fire trucks gonna go? Like, it's crazy how people think that you guys don't think of that first. So
I can almost guarantee you the thought has at least come up in discussion.
yeah.
Now, one thing on like the finance side that is a possible thing is kind of like a single purpose funding mechanism. So like there's been communities like Fort Morton, Colorado has a program called Strictly for Streets. And this is a 1% sales tax they allocated that is only allowed to be used for street maintenance, street upgrades, and street work. And it's something that can be done so that it is, when it is passed and allocated and everything, that successive councils and city staff and everybody else has to continue use of that unless it goes through like the proper vote and approval process. And these have been very successful at finding a narrow issue that needs to have a lot of support, but consistent support, and get it up to a standard that you want.
Isn't that what 3A did?
3A is like that, but it's kind of like a medium focus. It can be used for a lot of things, like maybe there's a Strictly for Sidewalks program that is just for sidewalks and multi-use paths. And it's just kind of like we can focus down or we can focus wide. And a lot of it just depends. If the wider focus that you have, it is something that can be chosen for the needs and the citizen demands of the day of where they want those allocated at. So whether it's a narrow or a wide use, it's something that we can consider as like a possible, one of the possible options on funding.
So I know we got a whole other meeting to talk about all this stuff, but for this meeting, if we're gonna get this down to a 10-minute recommendation with 3 bullet points, what do we say to council for multi-use paths? Does anybody have feedback on that?
Yeah, what are the strongest points to make?
Well, I wonder if figuring out how to overlay the current trails map to what we're suggesting for the multi-use, so we can show them the where the gaps in the game by using this program.
Yeah, so I've never seen the Trails Gap study. I think that's fantastic. If there is something out there saying, we need this. So,
It is out there.
Filling an existing.
yeah.
Right, right.
And I think the major point that you talked about, like the multi-use path should be the same size as car travel lanes. I think that's an important thing to hammer on, because it's really easy to be like, oh, we'll give you a 5-foot sidewalk or a 4-foot sidewalk. And it's like, no, it should be the exact same so that travel of multi-use can happen.
To alleviate the very thing you're talking about, Katie, about the wheelchairs in the road.
Yeah.
They're trying to get away from.
Yeah, I do think that it can serve as ADA compliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, Derek, that's what I was gonna say. I agree that that just making the shared use the same size as the others is really equitable. It's a really big statement, and I think it should be a leading part of that bullet point.
Yeah. And I know like some things observed, like a lot of it is multi-faction, they get to like an ultimate fill around 10 feet usually. Because that allows you to have bicycle traffic on it, that allows you to have people walking side by side, but it also allows people to keep it directions. And if you think of a bicycle and a wheelchair kind of occupying a similar amount of space, it allows you to kind of put a bike and a wheelchair on the same path doing different things, which allows you to have that. If it's 12 feet, then you can kind of have like 4 of those. So you can have 2 side by sides and 2 side by sides going 2 different directions.
I think culturally in Littleton, marketing have been talking about them as trails versus, they're street trails. So this is the Elati Trail system. This is the Gallop Trail or the Ridge Trail. rather than a multi-use path, which sounds dry and generic.
Or it's like the phrase you said, neighborhood connector, I feel like that's.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's impactful.
Yeah. And so I think that's an important aspect when we're talking to council about it as well. It's like, this is completing our trail system and it's connecting our neighborhoods.
Yeah, the language we use, yeah.
Yeah, it's very important because it's not just a multi-use path. Like we can put a multi-use path on Broadway, but what is our true intent? And it really is to complete our trail network and connect our neighborhoods together.
I wouldn't be able to walk to your house.
You cannot now right now, no. But yeah, you better get on the High Line first.
Again, things that, you know, not to say they couldn't change in the future, our current design standards have a minimum of 10-foot lanes. We typically do not go down to 9-foot lanes. And that is due to engineering things. And snowplow widths and yeah.
I think that's fine, because I think that the trail should be 10 feet minimum as well anyway.
Oh, yeah, because handlebars are now almost 4 feet.
Really high, really wide.
I do want to keep the discussion moving, and I want to move to the topic of transit because that is also a very chief concern of the community. And please.
Can I say one thing though before we transit? So I was looking up the Centennial, that Colorado Boulevard multimodal improvement. So it looks like they did a corridor study that was published in 2021, and then they received TIP funding through Dr. Cog for the actual construction improvement. So like we have many funded projects, then the next call for projects the process is going to start, we think, later this year or early next year. And that money will become available in 2029. So yeah, Centennial kind of has done what we've done too, where like you have the study, right? I know everyone needs studying, but you gotta figure out what you want before you know what to ask for. And then, you know, they're gonna start construction this year. And so that's about a 5-year gap between doing design, getting the funding, or actual construction.
And I could make a good assumption that's kind of like we're trying to similar process with our current corridor studies for many of the areas that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I talked to them, they actually recognized the need for change in 2019. So.
And with TIP funding, so the way it all works is you have to be part of the regionally significant road network to be eligible. So like a lot of the roads we talked, like Ridge, Prince, Alati would actually not be eligible for that money. And that's one of, I think, kind of the impetus for the Safer Streets program was a focus on neighborhood streets, because there's a lot more funding opportunities we just got Littleton Boulevard added, which was like a big win, we thought. But like, you know, Broadway, Santa Fe, Bellevue, Mineral, right? Those like, there's opportunities that it's harder to crack these, you know, these neighborhood nuts, so.
Derek, before we move on, can we just get down in writing and read back? If everyone's in agreement, start doing transit, because I hate talking without having a documentation.
Everyone, I'll read what I have put together, make my notes and everything. Currently I have 4 bullets, which I'm gonna probably the first one is that we want to see them as kind of like the focus of the sidewalk program, so that sidewalks can be identified in that use for just more than pedestrians, but also pedestrians, bicyclists, alternative transportation if applicable, and also some possible novel implementations of that. Like there could be non-vehicular travel paths, there could be trails that are included into that, just because we don't have an infinite amount right away, but sometimes a novel idea is something that can be approached to get a solution that helps the community. We also want to make sure that the islands and everything in the city are connected together, because we have some really good networks and we have some networks in between those really good networks that are lacking in what the community wants to see as a goal. So we want to see those more connected so they can be more functional. So say we got like the grocery store and we got Littleton Boulevard, we want to make sure people can use that in, you know, not only a car, but they can also walk, they can bike, and they can get there, because there's vulnerable and limited populations that need access to that. But it's also just good for the culture of the community to have the option how they want to engage in their life and not be forced into just one option. Also, the next thing is kind of like identifying this in like an overall plan aspect where we kind of put everything on one image, one thing that we can identify, hey, here's where stuff is good, here's where stuff is bad, here is the things, everything in between. Kind of like how the old master transportation plan had it identified, but also start enhancing it and bringing it up to today's standards so it communicates what we need for planning, for adaptation and such. And then the third bullet is gonna be getting into some of the kind of like policy guidance items, you know, making sure that the features that we want to see in the sidewalk program are there, whether it could be like making sure that we have widths, making sure materials, making sure that we have locations, making sure that it's equitable to other items and vice versa. And make sure that those kind of like overall policy goals are identified and incorporated into the work that they do. And then the last bullet is just kind of a short, quick one, which is just making sure that we have appropriate kind of like branding of the sidewalk so that people don't make a misassumption of what they're actually there for. And that they can see what they could be and should be in the future. And also possibly like new classifications, approaches to a street and stuff like that. Maybe we could look at it in a new way so that it serves the community today, not how the world is.
Yeah, so I got that down to, we want trails for people, that complete the connections. Plan for the areas that need it most first. And recommend the possibility of different materials and design and branding it properly. I think a part of the conversation to council also needs to be, we want to see quick build on this with the intent for final design down the road.
Projects that can go in quickly to serve immediate needs in critical areas.
So that's my 5 points. What does everyone think of those? Trails, complete the connections, planning with quick build, benefits of different materials and design, and the way we should brand it for Littleton.
I like that neighborhood connector.
Neighborhood connector, yeah, keep that front and center.
And I feel like it gets kind of lumped into design, but like the equitability part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Planning.
Urban design.
Yeah.
Has to accommodate.
Like it. All right, is everyone ready to move on from this?
So.
I think so. Which makes it the Kelly Moon show.
No. Wait, I think, and Maureen just interrupt at any point, we didn't necessarily coordinate.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the lead.
I think, so I definitely would love input, because I think where Maureen and I were discussing is like, ideally, we want to put forward kind of the hybrid approach, which is, you know, a circulator, yes, and then you could go into benefits of a circulator, right? It's reliable, it's consistent, you can mobilize people, but it doesn't necessarily hit the need of, you know, it's 8 a.m. on Tuesday, I'm in a wheelchair and I don't have a vehicle and I have to get to my doctor, right? So that then goes to more of that on-demand kind of micro transit. And, you know, we'd love to say it's not an either or. You know, is there a place to, you know, to test and try both in some kind of combination? And, you know, that's what, I mean, I'll fully own that, you know, a lot of what's on here is from Gemini, so thank you. But yeah, I mean, one did come out as kind of a way to bring the two models together. And, you know, that's where I'm like, how far down do we take this? You know, are we saying, I think maybe run the circulator like a Thursday through Sunday situation, and then you've got your on-demand transit during the week? I don't, right, like maybe that isn't a level that we need to go to here and now in this dialogue. But But yeah, essentially that's where we landed and, you know, then again, also, right, probably a level we don't need to necessarily be in. But where, you know, where do we see the places that a circulator would need to go to? I think we did think it could be useful to call out that, you know, eventually, right, we're gonna see the front range passenger rail, you know, did that become a part of the flow of the system, in terms of locations where you'd want a circulator to stop? Or is that, you know, taking the scope too large? Because I feel lose some of that expediency of moving it just around the downtown area.
Is this presenting an opportunity for us to reach out to those other areas and bring in people from the other parts of the city? I mean, you know.
I think part of the benefit is too, it's like, it's a bus, it's not like a street where you put it down and it's set for life. If the city wants to change the routes and adapt over
Yes.
time, which
Yes,
is.
right, and I totally love the phrasing of, you know, it will be a pilot. I mean, exactly that, right? We will test and what might seem in many ways like, oh, the best route ever could show up with some, you know, surprises. Oh, we didn't know that there's whatever.
Just run a bus from Highlands Ranch to Costco. That's the most effective one.
Sure. Bring in those sales dollars.
Well, and I assume it wouldn't be one bus, you kind of have like a system like Boulder, where they have like a hop, a skip, a jump, and a bound, and there's different distances, you're not on the bus for an hour trying to get someplace with 20 minutes a day.
Yeah.
What about like what Summit County has in Breckenridge, with like the on-demand, they just have an app. And the bus it's fixed route, but it's not, because you can say I'm here now, and then the bus kind of comes to you at that point.
Arapago had options for that too.
Okay.
Like a call, I forget what the name was, but you would call and
Yeah.
they'd come pick you up.
That's actually really efficient. When we're in Breckenridge, we never need a car. We go to the bus stop.
Yep.
And we have to call the bus. Like, that's the one downside to it, but those buses are always full because of that.
I mean, what, in the most simplest of ways, what came up with like, this is really simplifying, but it's, you know, a choice between flexibility and predictability. And I'm, you know, our thought was, hey, if we're getting to recommend, we'd say don't choose. Do both. Yeah, you know.
You know, I wonder if there could be a hybrid of during peak hours, it's a
Right.
fixed route, and then
Right.
during off hours, it's more on demand.
Don't we currently have like a micromobility program, like that on-demand?
So that was something to look, I was a little and or maybe you know, but yeah, I was like, what? There was something in existence, and then there's still the RTD access, right? Like there's stuff I just am not as solid on
That the city
actually
does,
how
some of the
functioning
county and then RTD do.
and or if we're tapped into any of
We
it.
got the VF for elderly, and which is on demand, extremely expensive. It takes
Yeah.
7 days of advance.
And you've got to be super savvy with your smartphone,
Which is very difficult, yeah.
as we've heard from our commentators to the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the cuts that RTD has just announced, the 20% reduction that they're talking about, that just is throwing another log on this fire, because it's not gonna get better, it's gonna
No,
get
it's gonna
worse.
get worse.
Yeah, so I mean, at one point here, right, it says in the hybrid model, you know, you use a fixed route circulator for kind of the high density area, and then allow like the on-demand to do more peripheral, but I get a little like, yes, but you know, the peripheral is where the medical appointments will be and where the doctors are. And so, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
With the,
I think
go ahead, Marie.
I think we were trying to not repeat services and not take away any services, however limited and frustrated people were with them. I was looking up like the RTD bus. I was like, well, can I get from Littleton Station to King Supers? And I can hourly. But how do we address that first and last mile still with the systems in place that we have? I thought the circulator bus, I feel like there's an opportunity for big events like Western Welcome Week or anything where there's excess parking to have like a holiday schedule or a Thursday to Sunday schedule with farmers markets to alleviate and have an answer to parking so that we don't have to justify more parking spots, or we have a justification for why we don't need more parking spots in high density areas. So I think the hybrid answers both questions of first and last mile and consistency. We just get back to funding.
Would the on-demand microtransit be available to everyone or just those that need it?
Well, we talked about that also because it is very limited. It is somewhat limited right now for VIA. It was over 60 years old, I believe, or with a disability. And it's like, well, what about, people who are 20 who, if you haven't gone through all the paperwork for a disability, or when you're new or not to not being mobile, the paperwork can drown you and make it not worthwhile. And how I think with Lone Tree's system, I know lots of kiddos are using, I don't know how young the kids are, but I think it's lots of access and you don't need a diagnosis or an age capacity, which I would prefer. Again, if there's a funding limitation, absolutely want it for those who need it, but then it gets tricky with qualifying and all that.
Yeah, in that conversation, we both agreed we'd love it to be fully accessible to all. But then like, is there an ability to prioritize, right? If suddenly it's an incredibly high demand and like how, I mean, that just might be a layer that can't really be unlocked or.
Could you do something with a student pass? Just, just have passes, and if you just are in town visiting, you're paying full fare.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I went to Geneva, everyone, as soon as you booked a hotel, you got a free transit pass for the whole city, and that like it paid your train from the airport into the city.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. What if the on-demand was more destination-based?
European city.
It's only for going to the hospital or to a circulator bus stop or something like that.
Yeah, that's an option for sure. Just to, if I'm in a wheelchair and I go from my house and the on demand just to take me to the bus stop, that's a long day, but they're long days anyway. I don't know if there's like qualifiers, or I like the brainstorming and I'd like to hear more. Just so I was even thinking, like, as someone who owns a car and can get themselves there, do I get like 2 passes a month just to use it if needed, or I don't know.
Yeah, interesting.
And like one thing I would like to point out in this is like the old circulator bus that was about 10 years ago, give or take. We had an issue, like obviously COVID was probably the biggest item, but RTD also helped us a lot with it, is we gotta have something that is gonna be scalable. If certain situations happen, like we get another COVID for some reason and nobody wants to use it for 6 months. Or say RTD wants to come back in and, get really involved in kind of like middle mile, last mile transportation, like how there needs to be a consideration to make it flexible enough so that the city can keep it functional, but maybe use it to fit other demands as are identified and make sure it's a best fit and not kind of like just a rigid key. It's something that can be customizable.
Well, and the old system, the numbers that I heard going back to like 2015-ish timeframe, 2017, so pre-COVID, but just. It was costing the city something in the neighborhood of $200,000 a year for 12 people to use it. Yeah. And so it just wasn't viable.
Yeah, but what are we spending right now on VIA? Cause it's about the same per year.
But
I mean,
we're
here's what we
serving,
could say, I mean, if you make it accessible to all, you're going to increase ridership. And that will then support your case for why
okay.
it's worth
Yeah.
the investment. You know, I think, it's a different, there's different mentalities, I think, versus perhaps the creativity, but also with the shopping cart, was that accessible to everyone or?
I believe it was.
It was.
I
I mean, it will be a learning, you know, there will be learning to it, I'm sure. And that's fair and appropriate, you know.
I guess since we've got to make a
Yeah.
presentation to the council,
Right.
we're not going to solve it tonight.
Well, I think as a recommendation, I think Littleton, just as a value, should have a fixed route circulator. What that route is though, may change based on need every quarter, right? Or like we need to figure this out, but I think it should just be part of who we are as a city that we're gonna have this. And if that's just down Littleton Boulevard back and forth, then at least we have it. But we should always be prepared to fund it, keep it going. And then if it turns out it's great and it brings economy and money to the city, then we should expand it. But so that's.
I mean, it becomes a mark too, you know, it really becomes a point of distinction. I mean, honestly, you know, it's, you don't, in that kind of way of the actual circulation and stuff, like, I don't know that there's any other Denver-based. Inglewood has the couple on Broadway, that's true.
Yeah, and like some things that can definitely be looked at as like maybe a way that the populace can see stuff, because like we got frontline rail, we have all the new developments that are happening all everywhere. We have limited parking at some of the businesses, or maybe we have a giant festival or something. You know, having a bus, a circulator that could also be adaptable to bring service to those, could bring benefit to Littleton businesses, could bring benefit to high congestion. There could even be things like, say, there's some very popular areas, but people that get in and out, like intoxication, or, you know, it's just not reasonable for them to drive to a certain location, but maybe other locations are getting them from, like, say, downtown Littleton to the train station, or vice versa. It could be some additional benefits that this could do, and the more that it can do, but also defining that so that it can also serve vulnerable citizens, people who want to use it as part of the lifestyle, or people that just want to ride it for that, is something I think we should definitely consider.
We should have a fixed route that's uniquely Littleton, like calls attention to itself, like it's big and.
And that's kind of what I was trying to
Yeah.
say, in that of like, it's a little bit of a point, it's just, I was just, to the extent that council might enjoy, you know, hearing of a way to posture Littleton as particularly unique and advanced. And that it can do that.
In Inglewood, they proposed like an electric trolley, and that's like, I don't know, just an option, but.
Maybe we need a TMB field trip. Bert.
Bert.
What does that stand for? All right.
I think one of the biggest things to present on transit though, wouldn't it be that this helps with not only parking, which I know is a big deal, but also that the reduction of RTD, it's happening in 2017, so we have to address it and think about it this year. That is pressing on the city, and we need to connect people who need transit soon.
Especially as
Could
we.
phrase that as planning on an RTD budget deficit.
Being prepared and ready for whatever's gonna happen.
And on the offset, and we're growing as a city.
Growing, yeah, and by taking it in as hours, then we do have the ability to change it based on patterns that we see or shifts over time, versus if it's another entity, we might not have that.
And we can build them Katie's idea, the hop, skip and jump. And by doing stuff with Englewood and Centennial and making that the skip and the jump.
Well, I think branding is an important part of what we recommend because I've been here 22 years. I didn't find out about the shopping cart until last year. So like, yeah, like what is that? It was just a white bus that went up and down Littleton unless somebody told you you can get on that. You didn't know you could get on it.
Exactly.
So that's not what we want. I want this
Well,
to
but
be.
that's part of the argument when council, should they bring it up that it didn't work in the past,
Yeah,
they didn't really
yeah.
advertise.
We made it a secret program.
Not only that, but I think we've touched this on previous TMB sessions. It really leads into the wayfinding aspect of making sure that the different features of Littleton are very obvious, very interpretable to the populace. Because there's like some of the trail system, there's a connection from Mary Carter straight to downtown Littleton, but I guarantee you, not everybody knows that. But then we have the shopping cart, then there's just like, we need to make sure that these are obvious in some way, shape or form.
Rails and trolleys, come to Littleton.
So I a couple things. The 2025 budget for omnibus was 155,000, so I believe it's the same this year. That's what Kathleen presented last year. Just an FYI on that. And we do own our 2 omnibuses, as you would say. So, you know, we're not paying to have to rent other vehicles at this point, right? This is a very relevant conversation. I actually just had an Arapago project management team meeting today, and they did finally kind of present some numbers to the areas that we've talked about. And I forget when they were last here how much they presented. It was just kind of existing conditions data, correct? It wasn't certain areas yet. Okay, so I don't think y'all have seen that. And they are scheduled to come back and present to this group in August, which is before the city council meeting after the packet is due. So I realize that timing is not the best. However, if there are major changes that are needed, we can figure that out with the packet. I think it'll just probably help you with how you're talking to council, not necessarily change the content.
Is there a way we could get a snapshot distributed to the TMB, but also posted on the website so citizens can also go with some of those points that are out there with very relevant?
Yeah, everything's posted on the Arapago website, and so I can work with getting that advertised through our city channels and whatnot. I don't know how much they have posted, actually, well, hold on, sorry, I didn't even think of pulling that up. Look up Arapago transaction study. So they have a couple different, you know, it's the whole county and most municipalities within the county. And so there's different, you know, and they're looking specifically at microtransit and micromobility. Micromobility meaning shared e-bikes and scooters, microtransit being on-demand service. So the relevant, you know, part of Arapago County that touches us, there are kind of 2 proposed microtransit districts. Yeah, I don't know how much they've posted. Yeah, I was looking at this a week ago or a week ago. On the regional meetings. Okay. I don't know if it really matters to show you stuff that's not totally public yet, but I'm gonna hold off on presenting that just in case until it's posted on their website. So I'm just gonna speak to it right now. So one of the options that they're proposing is a Littleton Englewood area, so it'd be shared, and so it's not the entirety of the city though. It's mostly like kind of our main core. So between Santa Fe and Broadway down to county line. So it's really kind of the western side that would be left out. And then it would go all the way up through Englewood and Sheridan. And so that's like a 14 square mile area. They are anticipating that would be between 3 to 6 vehicles needed. Annual operating costs would be about 500,000 to 1.2 million. And so that would be a shared cost with Inglewood. The other option is to have two separate zones. So we would have just our own Littleton zone. And with that, it would be the entirety of what I like to call continental Littleton, so not Trailmark. But, you know, everything within, continental Littleton, which is about a 13 square mile zone. Vehicle count would be about 3 to 5 vehicles. And typically, like how Lone Tree Link on Demand does it, you know, they contract through VIA, different VIA than what we use for Omnibus, which, you know, that's VIA Mobility Services does the like seniors and people with disabilities, that kind of transit. And then just VIA does this micro transit. And so you actually lease vehicles through them. So there is kind of a higher cost with that because you're not buying the vehicles but you're also not maintaining the vehicles.
So that's an on-demand, is the one where it's kind of hitting the, like the periphery, like running Santa Fe to Inglewood. Is that also on demand, or would that be more of a circulation route?
Yeah, these are all on demand. The Arapago study is not looking at circulators.
Okay.
So the Littleton only one, the cost estimate for that is between $800,000 to $1 million. And so that would be fully on the city.
With the driver or without?
Yeah, these are all, I'm assuming their cost estimate, these are annual operating costs. So this would be vehicle, drivers, software, that type of thing.
So we have two.
But not necessarily wheelchair accessible.
No, Link on Demand does have wheelchair accessible. If you provide any public transit, you have to have wheelchair
So
accessible.
like one of the 5 of the fleet will have ability. Okay.
Would this in theory replace our current VIA, or would they be running in parallel?
That has not been fully determined. I would assume if we went to a micro transit service, this would replace the omnibus service. And in theory, it would be better service than the existing omnibus where you have to make an appointment like 7 days in advance, and you know, it would hopefully be a better service to the public, but we have not discussed that fully.
How big are our omnibus vehicles?
They're 14 passenger vans, but with wheelchairs that shows down.
Right.
You'll get to experience firsthand in October.
I'm already planning our race across town of like all the ways we're gonna try and get to a destination and see who wins.
And our current omnibuses are nearing the end of their useful life, and so they are going to need to be replaced in the very near future, which I know is something I think council has maybe been briefed on.
No, but I'm not surprised, but I don't want to buy new ones if we're going to switch services.
That's what, so it's kind of at the right time that those vehicles are ending their useful life. And so we would have to be looking at either buying new vehicles or looking at what is the next evolution of this service. So it actually works out timing wise pretty well.
I guess how do we account for this accommodation?
I feel like we could bring it up and be like, hey, we like talk about how we want to see a circulator bus. We'd love a hybrid approach. Arapago has already started on the micro transit. Here's what we think the city should pick up as a part of this overall. Like it's a mesh network, not just.
So Arapago has done the very detailed technical analysis in creating the zone. So I think it's how do you build on this in your recommendations? And like I said, they're gonna come in August. And so I believe part of that discussion is like, what is the, you know, is it the shared Littleton Inglewood service area that would be the recommendation? Is it more of the Littleton only? You know, is there another option that we're not thinking about? Which I say that with an asterisk though, because if there is another option, like we have not studied that and we don't have the recommendations from the consultants. So yeah, I guess I would lean towards, you know, looking at this Littleton Inglewood versus Littleton option. And I can potentially ask them. I don't think they're going to be ready to come in July, but maybe if that would be useful for this council discussion.
So what my intention for writing up the recommendation right now is like, I want to identify what our goal is for the mass transit system with a focus on a circulator mass transit focused item. Identify the needs that we needed to satisfy, but I think kind of like a caveat that we do know that there are possible regional solutions coming in. But regardless, if it's able to get off the ground or not, we won't see something that is gonna happen one way or the other. So we wanna have kind of like the option to have the path to go forward on either and adapt it as stuff becomes relevant to that stuff.
And that we want circulator.
Yes. I think, yeah, let's get that down in writing. I think our recommendation is the hybrid approach. That we do want a circulator that Littleton runs. We want a fixed route bus system of some sort. We are not gonna say what that is.
That's the big rocks, and then Arapago will fill in the small rocks for the rest of
That's
the.
right, and since there's already a conversation happening with lots of other people, like that's the backfill for that micro transit piece. But are we all in agreement that like, as part of this recommendation is telling council, you need to get a fixed route bus back in the city?
Yes.
Yes.
Advertised and marketed and known.
And then let's throw away the current buses and get something cool and pretty. And run it up and down Littleton Boulevard.
Give it to
Let's get a horse and buggy.
Give it to the Arts Commission and they can.
There you go.
Paint a schoolie and.
So with that said, it kind of goes along with the 5 points that we had with the multi-use pass. Like we want something that's available to all people.
It's a neighborhood connector.
It's a neighborhood connector. It's completing the connections.
Ooh,
Where they're gonna be. We would like to see something quick, like plan and use what we have, like plan for where the need is and use what we have until we need to replace it. Like we already have these buses, we already have these things.
And Josh
Let's
is
get
willing
those
to
going.
drive them.
You know, maybe not on Thursdays. I'll be here. But then also branding is part of that. Because it's all about Littleton.
And I wonder if as a part of, obviously this is getting a little in the weeds, but for the branding, if we could either involve LPS or the public, have a naming contest, something to really get community involved.
Yeah.
Well, we have some excellent new communications specialists in the city that are very trained in how to come up with some pretty good ways of making that happen, and we make sure that they're wrapped up and involved in that aspect. But we are having some great discussion, but I do want to move it on to the last topic because we are getting towards the end of the meeting. And I want to make sure that we are able to get close to the true time that we're supposed to be at and respect staff. And
Can I ask one quick question about the micro transit? If we choose Littleton and Inglewood, does that expand where you can go to your doctor's appointments? Or like if we just choose Littleton, is it just Littleton boundary?
that question can be very flexible.
Okay.
Well,
I think I vote for Littleton Inglewood anyway, but I think if it expanded the boundaries, then to me, it's a no-brainer.
It would typically just be within those boundaries, so.
I
Yeah,
mean,
Good combo, we'll get more.
Yes.
that way you could get to Littleton Adventist, you could get to Swedish. It expands.
yes, correct, yeah.
it's a good annex.
Can we take a 3-minute break?
Sure. It's cold.
That's, yeah.
It's not gonna be cold Saturday.
I know. It's gonna be
What's
hot.
happening Saturday?
Maybe 4, 95.
Sounds like it'll be toasty.
Does that mean more thunderstorms?
Probably.
Cleaned your gutters out last night.
I was in Westminster at this conference and I've been putting lots of TLC in my garden. I'm very worried about that.
I was too.
Turns out, you were worried about my garden?
You're already in my.
Okay, thanks, yeah. Obviously, mine did okay, so I'm all right.
Yeah, mine too.
We got like half an inch of rain in my house, so,
We got a lot of hail, at least on the northern part of the city.
so it was a good, like, my yellow grass is a
Here?
little
Yeah.
bit.
Okay.
I don't know where you were.
It didn't hit me in Denver.
It got central Denver pretty good.
Okay.
Interesting.
So I got hail 4 weeks ago. That was wild.
Yeah. Like golf ball.
Yeah.
Scary.
For like 15 straight minutes too.
These are more like dime size.
Here, yeah.
I don't have the intestinal fortitude to ask my wife to run out in the hail and cover up my garden.
We just popped up a big tent and put over our whole garden.
Yeah, no,
Our hops were like, make it hops. Do some work.
Yeah, there's somebody that I think they're on Windermere, who it looks like they've put umbrellas next to their plants.
Yeah.
So you can go out and raise the umbrella.
No.
That's smart.
Oh, it's over their plants that they don't want to get too much sun.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
They're hydrangeas.
I'm willing to guess it'll work for hail too.
Yeah, hybrid approach. Yeah.
Yeah, I did bury my daughter's umbrella in one of our little gardens that was completely separate from the mall and popped up the umbrella. It worked. So,
Yeah, parasols we've been using a lot during events, like makes me look very dainty.
Well, I'm gonna jump in now, but is everybody ready to get back on the way? Achilles.
Yep.
so we can keep talking about the weather.
And the awesome lightning show we had.
Oh, that was so cool.
Well, until late, I was trying to shower and I was like,
Should I do
I was like, no, I waited. I had to wait till like midnight and I was like, this is ridiculous.
that? Yeah.
You just went outside?
Oh,
I should have done that. Well, neighbors can see my backyard, so maybe not.
yeah.
Shame on them for looking.
Do what you gotta do.
True.
I don't know which is safer.
What's with the pole out there and how long it takes to put away your laundry?
You know, someone started putting.
No one knows who it is.
Yeah.
Okay. You're fine. We're gonna jump in quickly into the finance discussion. Andrew, Dave, definitely jump in. We do have a.
No shame.
I think we talked about the fact that we need to use single funded source. We do have the options that have been discussed of like other kind of like more dedicated, more focused things like 3A was, or it could be things like it could be fees, it could be possibly other mechanisms like impact fee. There's large developments and we have aged infrastructure that isn't built to current day standards that can be funded through some alternative mechanisms. There's also been some options in some communities, like maybe a sales tax, or there could be like, say, there's like a fee for registering like a bicycle or like an electric bicycle or something like that, that can be used for like multiple uses of protecting, you know, kind of tracking and protecting people from unintended uses of specialty equipment, but also for paying for the infrastructure those may want to use. There can also be, like we talked about, like project money, like obviously when you got all the equipment there, if you don't have to pay for the equipment to come back, you can do the work while they're there. It is going to be cheaper overall just by the nature of getting everything done at once. And it's just kind of like as any revenue stream that comes into the city can be looked at as a potential mechanism, but we need to make sure that it's fair, that it's equitable, and not an excessive burden, because that can have an opposite impact and negative consequences in other aspects of the city. We want to make sure that effectively this is a benefit for the citizens, this is a benefit for the businesses, this is a benefit for the people that want to come to Littleton because we're the best place in the Front Range. I mean, there's just a lot of things that we have to do. And Dave, I know you did some research into parts and pieces, and Andrew did. Do you guys have some ideas, some inputs, some focus areas?
It was crazy because, and it gets back to, you know, Robert's dilemma, because he's got to sell it. So I came across one, it's called retail excise tax, right? So if you sell your property, you have to pay a tax for the increased value, and then you take that money and you throw it into sidewalks, whatever, right? How do you sell that to the voters that you really want to have another tax when they're just getting out of Dodge, which they would then tack on the mortgage and da, 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 da. So there's just, it seems like every time I stumble across a funding solution, there was a political downside. And, you know, so there's lots of funding options out there, but good luck selling.
I guess one question I would have more so for y'all is, does the city have someone that explicitly does just grant writing? Is that, or is that like kind of an ad hoc as needed by y'all done?
In the past, it's been, so I know we had grant writers at one time and they were not here for long.
Do you think that helped? Cause that's something I could see, like, I know in the nonprofit sphere, having someone that all they do is write grants, you can get a lot of money doing that.
But, yeah, I think, so yeah, when we do write grants, we typically will outsource it now just because we're so busy. But I think we found that grants for sidewalks specifically are a little bit hard.
It's like any transit umbrella in general, I would say.
Right, I think that's a left pocket, right pocket. If we can find a grant for playground equipment.
Yeah, if we can cover that and then take that money out of the general fund, yeah.
Something else, so.
Yeah, the big thing with grants, yeah, so typically it has just been staff led. And mostly transportation planning staff led. And we have been very successful. We are kind of in a grant hiatus right now, unofficially, because we maybe bit off a little more than we could chew. So we are trying to just deliver on our existing grant agreements right now. So we've kind of put pause on new grants. And so it's not to say that we wouldn't get grants in the future. Obviously, like that is definitely part of our funding strategy. However, what we have found over the last couple of years with getting so many grants, especially, you know, federal funds. So that's either directly from, we've applied and haven't gotten direct federal funds, which is okay. Most of our federal funds though are from grants that we either apply directly to CDOT or from state agencies or from Dr. Cog, that they disperse out, right, the grants, those types of things. Is that federal funds do have a lot of strings attached to them. And so we have found that with, you know, certain projects like Santa Fe and Mineral, that is such a large project that it was always going to have federal funding in it, right? However, we have found like with our raised ped crossings downtown that we potentially spent 3 times as much because we had federal funding. And so there's that line there that we as staff are trying to figure out what is the line for going after federal dollars, and what is the scale of project that is worth getting those types of dollars, which on the flip side though, then kind of limits us of what projects then we go after for those federal funds, right? And so that's what I'm trying to say. There's a balance to it, right? And so something like sidewalks, historically, we have not gone after federal funding just because it's adding a lot of red tape to a project that wouldn't necessarily need it. However, we don't have any other funding mechanism for it right now. So all of that to say is I don't have a solution for you right now.
So I would say that my own main funding conversation the council's been having for the last year is around debt. So we've agreed to go into debt using COPs or investments in downtown, investments in replacing our service center infrastructure and also supporting town hall. And then, you know, we've started the conversation around whether we want to use a GO bond to fund other things. And so GO bonds are good for because they require voter approval. They're better for things that are flashy and exciting. And so I think, you know, of the things that are on your list that I think are possibly flashier and exciting are kind of the last mile projects connecting our trails, like our project right now under Broadway. I think those kind of things, there may be more public support for than sidewalks that only impact one neighborhood. I understand anyone uses a sidewalk, it impacts them. But you know what I mean? But, you know, the kind of transit projects where we're building infrastructure as opposed to a bus that's really operational, that are flashy or exciting and impact the whole community, are things where that might fit into our current kind of additional funding conversations.
I think for internal selling, that's where we pull away from using sidewalk terminal, because we're actually not recommending sidewalks, we're recommending connecting routes. And so, you know, I think that's, I mean, it's semantics, of course, but.
But is there
Very
opportunity to pull maybe some of the, like, the larger flashier projects into a geo bond that frees up money in the general fund or capital sales tax improvement fund to then pay for sidewalks, right? Is it like almost a flip
Well,
flop?
it's all fungible, yeah. It's all fungible. You want, and just to push it back a little bit, you want these to not be controversial.
Right.
And so, to the extent that our neighborhood, our street trails are controversial because they're changing people's access, that may not go over as well. But that's just my unasked for input.
Yeah, no,
Think about funding.
I would like to point out two other possible things, like one that's been very successful in other communities is kind of like it's a public-private program where, say, somebody wants to improve their sidewalk to the standard that the city has kind of like a contribution, kind of like how they do a lot of the grants and stuff, where the grant has the city put a portion in. The city almost does that for some of the citizens where, you know, they want to improve it, but obviously big ticket items for individual homeowners or businesses. But if there's less of that burden, sometimes a lot more people will make that decision. And then kind of just an out there could be, could not be, is stuff like crowdfunding and stuff for very high profile projects. Sometimes there's just a lot of community desire to see a particular thing done, and they're willing to pursue very novel methods that get it done. And maybe making sure there's a mechanism or something like that in place to where that could be an easy to implement thing if the community has the will to make it happen. Just so that it's a possibility.
Does Littleton ever do, I can't think of the term, but like Sheridan does it to the Costco up there, the special interest fee or whatever. I pay 0.1% extra at that Costco than other Costco's or other stores around there, just because they have an extra tax fee.
There are metro districts that are created, and so there will be a metro district for the Costco here. There'll be a metro district. There's a metro district for the development in the where the restaurant or whatever is going in the southwest corner of Mineral. So metro districts are a common thing.
Metro districts, though, the taxes that are levied go back into that district though, right?
That's right, they're paying for the infrastructure in that district, and I think that's the same thing that happened with the Costco. So it's building the sewers, stuff in that district.
So we couldn't add a special tax for new developments or new retail for capital improvement in Littleton.
Well, we charge them impact fees already, but
That'd be
it's
like,
barely so.
it's like strictly streets or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a citywide initiative.
Having it selective on individual areas can be a very hard sell to the public, because people will feel they are not having it applied equitably among everybody, and they feel like that's not in the public benefit that individuals, it just makes a really hairy situation.
well, but that's what the LDDA is, right? The Downtown Development Authority it doesn't have really enough money to pay for capital things at this point.
Although
It should.
I love this because this was just such a great euphemism. In addition to dynamic curb pricing, parking meters. And then you price them according to the demand cycle. So at 7 to 9 p.m. when everybody's trying to find a parking place to go to the restaurants, you raise the rate.
That's assuming we have paid parking in the city.
Exactly.
I will say I remember that being a very opposed measure when discussed in the past.
Yep. We could do that and then just put in the circulator bus to go get them at ACC where they can park for free.
I like Dave's idea.
I like Dave.
No, I like the way you're thinking.
So is there an avenue for like private funding? Like, I'm just gonna say the Disneyland of transportation is like Bentonville, Arkansas. Walton's fund like all of their transportation projects and they have a lot of multimodal trails. Do we have an avenue for like private funds?
I think
to
that
go
would,
directly to trans?
I think that would fit into that crowdfunding type of aspect where.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I legally write $100,000 check to the city and say, I want you to put in a bike lane? Like, is that something that's
Is there a
actually
fund that could be-
available to
Yeah.
people? Like, can you do that?
There might be a policy thing that needs to be put in place, so something like that could be possible.
And the school district has a foundation. That's what they do with the foundation.
But the city, like,
We don't have a foundation. It's easier to raise money with your kids than it is with.
well, no, I'm saying like, literally me as an individual, if I say, I think I recognize a need and you say it's gonna cost $100,000, if I gave you the money, can you legally take that money and put it towards that need? Is that something the city can do?
That seems, I don't know, but that seems dicey that you're directing them.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, well, that's what I'm trying to figure out, like, what is the city's legal
Right.
ground
We
on
did
that?
that with the Manning thing.
No, we've like accepted bike rack donations.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So what if there was like a square foot or square yard or whatever? Could I buy it for $1,000? Like put my name Wayland on it and it's one piece of the mile-long puzzle of Prince Street barrier? Like,
Yeah, can we raise money for some of these
Community funded.
projects?
right. And like put something on it, like here's my square. I want to write my name in the sidewalk that I contributed to. Or can Sincali, stamp their name there, or can whoever.
Or could a neighborhood do it to get their sidewalks?
Well, I mean,
Right. Without names, I guess.
you could, in your presentation to council, you could ask the council direct the city attorney to identify those options.
Yeah.
First thing you do is quit.
Yeah. Well, I think the hardest proposal to sell is raising our taxes in any way.
Yeah.
Especially right now when we have like a couple of other things on the table. But I feel like like a transportation tax is what a lot of older cities are moving towards now because they have to in order to keep up with infrastructure and roads and urban sprawl and what it takes to maintain
So I guess would
facilities.
that just be an increase in our current capital improvement sales tax?
You propose a transportation tax.
There could also be a focus use like a 3A. It's kind of like one of those, there's many answers and
Right.
that could be one.
Yeah, 3A kind of does serve as that currently.
But other.
Neighborhood connector tax.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you all looked at the like sidewalk fees that Denver has done or that kind of like the fees that they.
Yeah, right. Actually, some of the stuff I found, they were getting national press.
Awesome. I think there's a lot of mechanisms and we'll organize those to basically like kind of like possible taxes, possible fees and novel funding mechanisms. And we'll just kind of present those questions. We want to see something tangible happen, that we can have a reasonable path that can be communicated to the citizens where this actually can be done. And we don't want to just talk about it for the next 5 years and nothing get done.
Right.
So, okay, we got 10 minutes left and we do have kind of like our end of the meeting items that we normally do. Like we have the update, staff comments, and I looked at it and I'd like to dive into those. So we'll make this back to the Shane and Kenna show for a few.
Did we need any other wrap up on that last one, or?
I think we should get something down in writing.
Well, that's why I think you said like, kind of break it into the three categories. Taxes, which we know will be controversial and probably get pushed back on. Are there opportunities for fees, your sidewalk funding or impact fees? And then in the last one's novel funding, and I think we could lump into that asking Reed, like, if someone were to, if, I don't think Dish would do it, but if Dish were to write a check to the city for $1 million, should they direct us what to do with those funds? Would it be a blank check? What's the expectation or limitations the city has?
And I will take on kind of like taking what we've talked about today and kind of getting some very early rough drafts so that we have good organization and stuff. And when we get into the next meeting, we can kind of read it over, think, and that is like maybe a 30-minute discussion point where we kind of go, okay, this is what we have. Do we all agree with that? Is actually the message, and then kind of refine it a bit more.
Is there a number that like we need funding wise per year that would just like keep us on track?
It's always growing, I can tell you that.
I mean,
Start writing zeros in the
much
air.
as we-
The answer is yes.
For the projects that you're like, we're so excited, we've done studies, surveys, we're ready to implement, but we don't have the funds, they're sitting on the table.
That sounds like the CIP.
It's funds and staff. I guess we could absorb staff and the funds, but.
And I will say, sometimes the transportation master plan, it has that mechanism built into it. And the old transportation master plan had some of that. The future one could, but that's gonna be something that we'll be discussing later this year. Once the selection process and everything is completed, we can talk in depth about it.
On that note, so we evaluated proposals. We have interviews in mid-July, and so originally we were hoping to have interviews a little bit sooner, but we had some people move and procurement people move on, and so with availability, that was the time that worked out for everyone. So then it'll take 6 weeks-ish from that after. So we're gonna make a decision after we have interviews in mid-July. Take about 6 weeks from there to get a contract is typically what it takes. Could be a little bit less, could be not. And then we'll be moving from there, so.
How many applications did you get, or?
Trying to remember.
I asked you last time and I think you said, I think you answered.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, I think we talked about numbers. We had 4 strong applicants, and so.
Are you interviewing all 4 of them?
We can talk about it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You don't have to say it out loud. Like,
I guess like you don't get interested games of that.
Yeah, well, and you know, so we have a procurement director who's very much risk averse in teaching us. I think we used to do procurement on our own, and it was probably lucky that we didn't get in trouble when I first started here. So yeah, so I don't know if we can say that. Yeah. So once we've decided, we can talk about all of it. But while we're in the procurement process, it's, you know, yeah, so I'll get details on what we can talk about.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Exciting.
Leave.
Yes.
I have a very high preference to avoiding emails till they can be properly distributed.
Yeah. So,
Any staff comments?
I mean, we already kind of touched base on Milani. You know, we had that public engagement wrap up yesterday, and so and we're talking to council about it on August 11th. So.
Let's jump into the look at, because I know we got a couple exciting things happening between now and the next meeting.
Yeah, so we will next meeting have a Blueprint Boulevard, which is the Littleton Boulevard sub-area plan update. Wondering though, now we can talk at our agenda planning meeting if that's appropriate, or if we need to spend this July meeting just talking about the joint session.
I mean, do we think it's
I don't
reasonable that you can circulate these, you know, the condensing that you
Yes.
kind of done, and then maybe give us space so we can each come prepared?
That is my intention.
Okay, to do it, and that would, yeah, we don't necessarily have to real time think about it.
I don't think it'll take up the whole, but I could see about 30 minutes. to kind of wrap and polish and discuss finite points.
Okay, it's us, make it 45.
That's fair.
And then we did talk about having some like more subject matter expert presentations around sidewalks and transit. So I think we can determine what that looks like though. And then like I said, Arapago is prepared to come in August and talk about the pilot projects and recommendations. And then we would move forward with kind of the other public engagement, sidewalks, transit discussion. So I think we can kind of determine what that looks like with this joint session.
And does this look kind of like in agreement with everybody that where we'd like to be at next month, or does anybody have any items that they want to emphasize?
When does Illuminate Littleton again?
July 24th.
Like the end of July. More so a question, not necessarily a suggested topic, but I know with all the, we'll say controversy with BOMAR, are we supposed to weigh in at all with that? Or is that just purely done on the political side with city council?
That's a really good question.
I think it is something that we may be discussing next time.
Okay.
I want to have some chance to digest that first.
Okay.
You guys are welcome to weigh in on it. I would say, I think our first, I'm willing, first part of the conversation is just, is it legal for them to do that?
No.
How we get that
Enforcement
determined.
mechanism,
Yeah, how we get that determined.
Yeah. Be like county.
But, I think it's perfectly appropriate for you to, for the DMV to say that doesn't look like it's good for our, for you guys to, you can say whatever, it's perfectly appropriate for you to voice your opinion as you see fit.
Is anybody pro gay?
Guys, they have it real hard.
I didn't mean to suggest what you should say, I'm sorry.
If they decide that they need to have a gate on their side, we can put up gates and take down gates to be a very equitable access.
They could go the
Do we
process.
just, do we just make a comment that public streets should be accessible?
Yeah.
And that's our stance?
That's our stance. Public streets belong to the public.
Right.
You don't get to be decided an HOA for being a town.
Andrew's got the solution.
I say we should just make it a toll road leading up to it.
Oh, it'll pay for.
Ooh, it'll pay for our neighborhood connectors.
Funding mechanism. That's a BOMAR.
Like, unfortunately, this
If they fund our neighborhood connectors, I will negotiate.
Well, we can make it different prices at different times of the day.
Of course. is that
$20 at 8 a.m.
Pay for sidewalks.
This is how we're gonna pay for sidewalks. Thank you, BOMAR.
Case closed.
Oh, there's people up there that can write a grant. and just-
Right.
With individualized cell phone and like, you're super late for dinner, your wife is very mad, it's $80.
Surge pricing, sir.
So we just solved everything.
Yeah, good job, guys.
So I just asked about Illuminate Littleton for transportation, a question on, they did so great for the block party and everything with, parking and people getting there. There are so many people walking and biking. Are we, going to provide like a city bike ballet or anything like that, or no? Is that on the table? Or volunteer stuff?
No, let's, we can ask about.
So that's being sponsored by a private entity, right? Like the Diamond.
Yeah, it was volunteer, yeah. But they did see like almost 150 bikes, which was great, which I don't know if they would have come otherwise.
Oh, that made my Rex.
Right.
Mm-mm.
But, you know, on the Belmore thing, we can basically say our stance is that we want freedom of travel between both communities because they're all part of an overall community of Colorado.
That while there is a sponsor for it, the city is helping pay for it.
Okay.
Not a, we do have a role.
All right.
I have a question and a compliment about the meet and greets. I feel like our board did an outstanding job representing the board's tent at the past meet and greet. And I was curious how we could encourage other boards and board members to show up.
I agree.
Yeah, I wasn't here to sign up for, but I'm glad to
There-
fill in. and come
There were
in.
3 of us from TMB and that was it.
That's,
Running the entire boards and commissions.
that's kind of in line with how it was last year, Marie.
Okay.
Because we volunteered to do it, it's where that starts.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, we wanted it volunteered and also requested.
yeah, we requested to be there, yeah, and so I think since we got this ball rolling, we should now request other boards and commissions to also be there.
Advise them that you get a lot of good feedback.
I mean, Derek could send a note to the chairs and say, we did this, it was a good experience, we're going to consider it as well.
That's a good idea.
Otherwise, we can just call it the TMB. Oh, no.
Was ESB there? Or was it just you all?
Just us.
It was Josh and Dave and I.
Okay. ESB was supposed to be there.
Council was there.
And the
And
next
then
thing,
I also have a question about the September 8th council meeting. Would you like us all to be there? What's the expectation or request? Just for my calendar.
I would say for the board, I would recommend it, but it is not an absolute requirement. I do know that I myself will be there. I'm assuming
I'll be
Josh
there.
will be
Yeah,
there.
I think Derek and I are required, or considering ourselves required, and everybody else is optional, but I think this group is pretty passionate, so I'll probably see a lot of you guys there.
Okay. Thank you.
And Shane, in your notes, you said you wanted to know about the September 16th, I think it was meet and greet thing.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, when are the next?
I've got it,
Yeah.
I put it down as required on my calendar.
I think it was July 10th or something like that.
When is the next one?
'Cause I can
You gave us.
show up, I wasn't able to signups.
More the merrier.
15th.
Exactly, that's, I figured there's more people.
Plus it gets us out of the 2 at a time.
Okay, July 15th at Stern Park, we have currently Derek, Katie, and Maureen.
And mine is just qualifying on a base, a sports schedule, but I think I'll be available.
August 19th is Southbridge.
Yes, and currently we have Derek, Katie, and Kelly.
Is there one in September as
And
well?
then September 16th is at Charlie Emily Park, and we have split time between Kelly and Maureen. And then Dave and Andrew if you're. I wanted to ask if you had.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just know if for some reason, if you're obligated and something comes up where you need to change it, just reach out and we will obviously get stuff flexed around. We just, 4 months out, stuff does change.
Good to have a plan.
But
Is that your birthday?
it is, I turned 61.
Congratulations.
Congrats. Is there other events coming up that are of interest or that the city is participating in that you guys are uniquely aware of?
Not uniquely aware of, and I think that on a lot of the more like public facing events, communications, you know, they don't want to have so much like, especially like the little games and stuff like that. They don't want to have like tents and stuff like that for city stuff, so.
Doing little jams this year?
We rebranded it as something.
There was,
There's concerts.
yeah, but it's a reduced concert series, I can't remember. But there is yeah, and then there's the ones at the museum, those as well.
There's been a lot of those, haven't there?
Yeah, this year there's a lot.
Yeah, it seems like there's always a crowd in that parking lot.
Yeah, it's always on Wednesdays.
It was good last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, Delta Sonics.
And I just want to let people know, like, we're all free to attend the other items, but we'll schedule any other event outside the evening.
Do we have a date for the October bus ride?
We don't, we typically decide that as we get closer, but if you guys know of I guess we can schedule it now if everyone was there.
Put it for next. I don't wanna play this game right now, sorry.
My friends are starting to land in October, so it's like,
Yeah.
If certain dates are desirable, just shoot them to us an email, and when we get to the next planning meeting, we'll see how that fits.
Yeah, we usually do late September, early October, because the weather's a little, it's still nice enough to get on a bus, but not so hot that you don't wanna go.
Call it the fall foliage.
so we go around, we get on the bus, all right, guys, we go.
Alright, does anybody have anything else at the end that they wanna talk about or address?
There
And if not, then I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.